Coming up, May Day, Maryland elections, and heartbreak in Northwest DC. Also, how you can join the socialist fight. But first, May Day. Hello everyone and welcome to the MDC Dispatch. I'm your host Tony, and I'll be bringing you the news and events from Metro DC DSA. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and be on the lookout for a new Dispatch episode on the first and third Sunday of every month. 1890 marked the first attempt at a coordinated May Day following a decision of the founding Congress of the Second Socialist International to hold strikes, rallies, and demonstrations as an expression of workers' power and to further the struggle to win the 8-hour day. The rally in Paris was the first public mass action of tens of thousands of socialists and anarchists since the defeat of the Paris Commune in 1871, a revolutionary uprising that sought to establish direct democracy, drowned in blood with 30,000 workers executed and even more imprisoned or exiled. In Germany, the march celebrated the reemergence of a public face of the socialist movement, which had survived 12 years of virtual illegality, stronger than ever after the anti-socialist laws imposed in 1878 were rescinded in 1890. And in London, the rally was the largest since the mass demonstrations of the Chartists at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, coinciding with the new unionism of unskilled workers ready to confront capital at the workplace and in the political arena. Eleanor Marx, Karl Marx's youngest daughter, was one of the principal speakers at the London rally. Active in her own right as one of the founders of the British Socialist League, a unionist and as such a strong supporter of women's rights, especially of women and girls working in sweatshop factories, she advocated that May Day should be a daily commitment to workers. Her comments are relevant today more than 100 years later. She said, quote, "We have come here in the cause of labor in its own defense, to demand its own rights. I can remember when we came in handfuls of a few dozen to Hyde Park to demand an 8-hour bill. But dozens have grown to hundreds, and hundreds have grown to thousands, until we have this magnificent demonstration that fills the park today." She continued, "Socialists believe that the 8-hour day is the first and most immediate step to be taken, and we aim at a time when there will no longer be one class supporting two others, but the unemployed both at the top and at the bottom of society will be gotten rid of. This is not the end, but only the beginning of the struggle." Socialists and workers carried this radical tradition forward with a weekend of action to reject capitalist brutality and organize for the world envisioned by workers past. Working people held 3 larger actions this weekend. MDC Dispatch was on the scene at the first of these actions, a rally and march through the streets of DC, starting at the Washington Monument. The atmosphere Friday was electric. Left-aligned organizations, large, small, and everything in between, filled the streets with thousands of members and supporters. Aside from our DSA comrades, trade unions and workers' rights organizations, communist and socialist parties, anti-Trump, anti-fascist, anti-war, anti-genocide, anti-racist, and pro-immigrant groups were all in attendance. Read more about the history and promises of May Day in May Day's Past, Moments and Movements, published in the spring 2023 issue of the Washington Socialist. If you're ready to get involved in working class struggle, check the links in the description to connect with labor organizers from DSA. TMZ, the tabloid more known for breaking celebrity scandals than hard-hitting news, has officially set up shop in DC, offering cold hard cash to anyone who can give them some dirt on politicians. True to their roots, they were immediately sharing photos of what politicians were doing when not at the Capitol. Lindsey Graham at Disney World with a bubble wand. Ted Cruz on his phone. A whole group on a trip to Scotland. In between posting about Call Your Mother on social media, they've also managed to break the Eric Swalwell story. Without outside interest to protect, like every other news agency, TMZ might just be able to cover some of the stories about DC and national politics that have gone uncovered for far too long. On April 13th, the body of 19-year-old Isaac Aguirre was found hanging from a tree located outside the Metropolitan Police Department 4th District Station in Washington, D.C. The grim discovery was made by school children in the area. Aguirre, who had moved across the country from Arizona, became the subject of immediate concern and protests from community activists who questioned the circumstances of his death. His family traveled over 36 hours to seek answers from the police, but activists claim the MPD refused to provide them with information, leading to accusations of a cover-up and a suspicious death. In response, on April 27th, approximately 50 activists and community members from groups like the DC Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression and Movimiento Migrantes, DC, held a vigil at the 4th District Precinct to demand justice for Aguirre. Speakers at the event tied his death to a pattern of police terror at this specific precinct, such as the 2020 killing of Karen Hilton Brown and the stationing of Officer Jason Bagshaw, who was involved in the death of Lazarius Wilson. Demonstrators marched and held the police responsible for what they alleged was a neglectful investigation and a cover-up.
Hey y'all, it's Tyle from DSA, and here is your essential perspective of the week. Why do leftists use the word socialism? If you ask most people on the left, the answer seems obvious. That's what we do. But Mark Rosenwig in ZNet this month argues that the word has become unstable, a shorthand from everything from Scandinavian welfare states to worker councils, and even just anti-capitalist anger. And I think, regardless if the argument is persuasive or not, the conversation is certainly compelling. The core argument is simple but heavy. We keep using the word socialism, not because we figured out the perfect definition, but because the problems it was meant to solve are still here. Capital is still king. Wealth is still grotesquely concentrated. The gig economy, in some ways, is even more precarious than the factory jobs it came to replace. Oh yeah, and the climate. The author argues that socialism isn't a ready-made model or a state form you can just switch on. It is a historical wave. It is the memory of the Paris Commune, the factory councils, the defeat of the 20th century, the betrayals of Stalinism, and the fragmentation of the modern left. Some may try to swap socialism for softer terms like post-capitalism or economic democracy. This author, however, warns that this is often an evasion. It tries to keep the dream while throwing away the history. But that history includes our defeats. We cannot ignore the bureaucratic denigration of past revolutions or the ways social democracy got absorbed into capitalist management. Those failures are part of our present reality. We can't and we shouldn't run away from them. Which brings us to the present. Look at the rise of figures like Zoran Mondani in New York, following Bernie Sanders and AOC, or even the DSA-endorsed candidates we've interviewed on this very channel. Seriously, go. After this, go watch it. The author, and personally I agree, believes that this is a good thing, believes that it breaks the anti-communist taboo, believes it makes anti-capitalist language normal again.
For too long, we have turned to the private sector for greatness while accepting mediocrity from those who serve the public. I cannot blame anyone who has come to question the role of government, whose faith in democracy has been eroded by decades of apathy. We will restore that trust by walking a different path, one where government is no longer solely the final recourse for those struggling, one where excellence is no longer the exception. We will transform the culture of City Hall from one of no to one of how. We will answer to all New Yorkers, not to any billionaire or oligarch who thinks they can buy our democracy. We will govern without shame and insecurity, making no apology for what we believe. I was elected as a democratic socialist, and I will govern as a democratic socialist.
But, as always, don't get it twisted. This itself is not a revolution. These politicians are working within strict fiscal and legal chains of a capitalist regime from top to bottom. They can improve lives, rent control, better transit, childcare, and that for sure matters. We have to be on the necks of those with power to provide us our just due. But without independent power rooted in labor and communities, municipal socialism risks becoming just competent management branding, liberal reformism. That is how you get lazy platitudes painted on gentrified streets. A plea to state-sanctioned kidnappers to at least show their grinning teeth as they separate a mother from their children, a teacher from their students, a nurse from those who need his help the most. The problem isn't that these politicians are morally weak, even though it's also a problem. The problem is structural. Capitalist states aren't just neutral tools. They aren't neutral at all. They're embedded in property relations. When you try to govern within them, the machinery forces compromise to get back to the status quo. So why keep the word? Because socialism names something deeper than just redistribution. It defines the abolition of class domination. It defines the reclamation of what was stolen from the worker. It names a break, not just an adjustment to society. And anything else? Well, to me, that might not be socialism. Abandoning the word for something softer concedes too much. It gives up the ground to those who demonize it, to the right that demonize it, and to the liberals who dilute it. But those are just my thoughts. Go read the article and let us know in the comments. What do you think? Is socialism still the right label, or do we need a new one to get those still on the fence onto the side of the people? I'm sure you guys have thoughts. I'm excited to see them in the comments. Join the chapter for any of the huge slate of events coming up in the next few weeks. RSVPs linked in the description. DC Electoral Working Group will be phone banking DC members for our candidate-endorsed candidates, Janice Lewis-George for DC Mayor and Aparna Raj for the Ward 1 seat on DC Council. The Outreach Bonanza will help raise money and encourage more DSA members to attend our canvases this upcoming weekend, Wednesday, May 6th. Join us. Also on the 6th, join SOS for a general membership meeting. SOS will introduce their work to any new attendees, hear building organizing updates, workshop tent organizing challenges, and discuss our plans to elect MDC DSA endorsed tenant champions as we head into the June primary election. They'll have pizza and refreshments. The Nova Branch Electoral Working Group will be hosting a social at Chubby Squirrel Brewing Company in Fairfax on Thursday, May 7th. They'll be talking all things politics. Anyone and everyone is welcome to join, so show up for that. Please join MoCo DSA for their monthly general body meeting. This meeting is open to the public, so any potential, new, and returning members may participate as they discuss branch and chapter business. That's going to be Saturday, May 9th. Join Metro DC DSA and the Labor Working Group in knocking doors for Janice Lewis-George in the Waterfront neighborhood beginning on 11 a.m. on Sunday, May 10th. Training will be provided. Bring water, portable charger, and some good walking shoes. We can't wait to see you out there. Nova Branch will hold its monthly general body meeting in Fairfax and virtually on Thursday, May 14th. As always, subscribe to the weekly update for the most up-to-date list of events every week in the link at the description. Now let's turn to our DMV Left Bulletin. More than just DSA is hosting events in the coming weeks, so are many other groups. Here are just a few of the upcoming events that we're also keeping an eye on. View Crushing Wheelchairs, a film screening at AFI Theater in May 12th, one of my favorite movie houses. The film was created by a cast and crew of currently and formerly unhoused youth, family, and disabled elders in the Bay Area. The scripted film is about their lives and ancestors lost to the ongoing violence of homelessness, eviction, gentrification, domestic violence, police terror, and sweeps. Join UMD's School of Social Work Advocacy students and Rockville's Renters United on May the 5th for a voter registrar training and community potluck. Rockville Renters United will be joined by a representative from the Montgomery County Board of Elections who will train attendees on becoming voter registrars. Participants will learn how to register people to vote to ensure that as many people as possible are able to be involved in electing local representation that will fight for them. As always, tell us in the comments what you're pulling up to. We can't wait to see you. Find these activities and many, many more at the calendars of events on the website or in the full weekend update, also linked in the description. And now, a new segment. So, I was a Black Saga kid growing up. And if you don't know what Black Saga is, you probably lived in a neighborhood that didn't necessitate needing Black Saga. And that's neither here nor there for this particular conversation. However, I was pretty good at Black Saga, at least in elementary school. And so I knew at a very early age how important the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was to America. As much as I knew Garrett Morgan invented the traffic light, and it was Big Mama Thornton who really invented rock and roll. Regarded as the legislative crown jewel of the civil rights era, the Voting Rights Act was enacted as a comprehensive tool meant to undo the political hold Jim Crow policies in the South and related discriminatory structures nationwide. Congress adopted the law to ensure that states followed the 15th Amendment's guarantee that the right to vote not be denied because of race. The law fundamentally opened political opportunities for Black and Brown communities to participate in all aspects of the political system on a equal basis. Section 5 of the law requires jurisdictions with a history of discrimination to obtain approval from the Department of Justice or a court before changing voting rules, a process called or known as pre-clearance. Section 2 of the law allows people to sue, either on their own behalf or with the assistance of the Justice Department, to undo existing laws and procedures that would deny equal political opportunities to voters to elect candidates of their choice. However, these protections have been systematically eroded by recent and past Supreme Court decisions. Still, for many people, the Voting Rights Act is proof that we're supposed to be every man equal under one vote. I'm sorry, I couldn't even say it with straight face. Jokes aside, this is supposed to be America's thing, right? I mean, it's supposed to be a high point of the American experiment. The fact that we were able to overcome the prejudice of one group, and for the betterment of everyone, we would codify democracy. One man, one vote, regardless of skin tone.
To deny this right, I think, is to deny democracy itself.
The Voting Rights Act made abundantly clear that the federal government would back the commitment in the Constitution to assure that the right to vote was available to people regardless of race. It reflected the triumph of a lot of grassroots workers throughout the South, including the great John Lewis, who actually had to face armed attack to bring this to the public's attention.
Do you like time travel? Because as of this week, we've officially gone 60 years back in time. On April 29th, 2026, the United States Supreme Court issued a landmark 6-3 decision in Louisiana v. Calais, though that seems too on the nose, ruling that Louisiana's congressional redistricting map, SB 8, was an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. The ruling struck down the state's second majority Black district, a district originally created to comply with a lower court order following the 2020 census. While the court did not declare Section 2 of the VRA unconstitutional, the majority opinion significantly heightened the burden of proof for plaintiffs. Challengers must now prove that a state intentionally drew maps to reduce the opportunity of minority voters. Legal and dissenting justices suggest that this decision effectively renders Section 2 a dead letter, potentially allowing Republican-led legislators in the South to eliminate majority-minority districts. The political implications are huge, with estimates suggesting as many as 19 House seats could shift from Democratic to Republican control as states initiate mid-census redistricting. This is a going concern. So let's break it down. And mind you, I'm not like a lawyer or anything like that, but I do want to give you my best rundown of what's going on for you guys. So let's start with the case. The legal conflict originated from the 2020 census, which revealed that approximately 1/3 of Louisiana's population is Black, which, to be honest, I thought it'd be more. The Republican-led Louisiana legislature approved a map with 5 majority white districts and only 1 majority Black district. I do like math, though, and 20% is less than a third. So Black voters eventually challenged the map under Section 2 of the VRA. Federal Judge Shelley Dick ruled in June 2022 that the map was discriminatory and ordered a second majority Black district. In 2023, the Supreme Court intervenes. Following the decision in Allen v. Milligan, which happened in Alabama, the Supreme Court allowed the challenge to proceed. The Fifth Court gave Louisiana a deadline of January 30th, 2024 to draw a new map, which created SB 8, this new 6th congressional district that included from Shreveport to Baton Rouge, and it, more importantly, increased its Black voter percentage from 25% to 55%. But then soon, a reverse challenge. A group of non-African American voters sued, alleging the new 6th district was a racial gerrymander, violating the 14th and 15th Amendments. Ultimately arguing that the redistricting that was happening to stop the discrimination faced by brown and Black people was now, in fact, racist because it was discriminating against white people. You literally can't make this up. Well, I mean, I guess they just did. By the time the case reached the Supreme Court for re-argument in 2025, the state of Louisiana under Governor Jeff Landry and Attorney General Liz Muriel shifted their position, arguing that its own newly created maps were now unconstitutional, the maps with the new black district. Ultimately, the Supreme Court's decision was split along ideological lines, with the conservative majority affirming the lower court's finding that SB 8 was an illegal racial gerrymander. Justice Samuel Alito authored the majority opinion, asserting that race cannot be the predominant factor in redistricting, even when a state claims it is attempting to comply with the VRA, the thing that was made because of the racial discrimination by... I'm not going to crash out. It's cool. Justice Elena Kagan gave a scathing yet almost resigned dissenting opinion, stating that today's decision renders Section 2 all but a dead letter. The consequences are likely to be far-reaching and grave. One other justice words I have to highlight are that of Justice Clarence Thomas. The court should have never interpreted subsection 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to effectively give racial groups entitlement to roughly proportional representation. Now, Clarence, I know your mama ain't teach you that. On my mom's, I know your mama ain't teach you. Clarence. So where are we now? The new considerations are confusing. The federal government doesn't have to hear the challenges. They make a admission that both the two-party system and race are inextricably tied, yet also that there's no more racism in the South anymore, so we don't even need the VRA. And then at the end of it, I think the worst part, or the one of the bigger changes, is that now in order to win a section 2 challenge, plaintiffs must now prove that the state intentionally drew districts to afford minority voters less opportunity, not they simply have a right to equal representation to choose the people they want, which is what has been the standard for decades. But that's just me. What do you think? I mean that. Let's have a conversation in the comments. Has voting equality effectively been gutted in America? Has the Republican Party ensured political relevancy for the next generation? And do you think the country can survive the repercussions of this Supreme Court decision? Let us know your thoughts down below, and Dispatch team will be eagerly awaiting to discuss right alongside with you. I'm Tayo, and as always, be kind. The Democratic Socialism of America is growing. If you're not already a member of DSA and would like to connect with other like-minded activists, community organizers, and neighbors, visit dsausa.org and join today. I literally paid my dues last week. Metro DC DSA is the third largest chapter in America with over 3,000 members. We are very active in the community and have groups focused on labor, tenant rights, LGBTQ rights, environmental activism, and so much more. DSA is the largest socialist organization in America, and we would love to have you as a member. These and other stories, along with links and sources, can be found in the Metro DC DSA weekly update newsletter, which you can find, say it with me now, in the description.
This production has been a collaboration of members of Metro DC DSA.
Make sure you look out for new videos on the first and third Sunday every month.
I'm your host, Tony.
And I'm Tayo.
Signing off with a reminder, a better world is possible.